Hello. So this video is on the explanation and data quality section of Cloudify and Form. This is included in the free version. Obviously, it contains some of the metrics that are used in that version, as well as some that are used in the core remainder of the product. So I'm just going to shrink myself and come over to the this explanation section firstly. So with the explanation section, there are 3 pages. I'm just going to flick through them. There are 3 pages. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to give you an interactive way of selecting a month. So let's just say March, where you can say, okay, for this demo firm, I have 3,923 recorded hours in Actionstep. And all of these metrics here are found in the rest of Cloudify and Form. But what we're doing here is we're defining them. And so you are able to see how they're defined and compare that to any existing reporting you do, compare that to Actionstep reporting you do within Actionstep or outside of Actionstep as a way of understanding the metrics. And we've done it here rather than a PDF so that you can select months and you can actually engage, interact with it. We've also done it here rather than in the specific dashboards and the specific reports, so that that doesn't get crowded. So, for example, I would read here that client hours recorded in the month on billable matters only, can be adjusted to exclude certain billing behavior. Okay, so that is that gives you then the context of which client hours are billed, and it does give you the context that we can discuss what is included in client hours and what isn't. So you can see below in hide are actually included in client hours, but you may want to exclude hide, that some firms do. So these are the 3 pages. Now I'm going to do specific videos on those 3 pages, talk them through. What these pages do as well, really well, is they give you what we mean by January 22 or March 22. We are talking, when we're talking a time entry, about the time entries from those months. And when we talk about invoices, we're talking about the invoices that were raised in January 22. So the time component is important, and also the definitions themselves. And here we have this nice little reconciliation of the left side, the invoicing side of things, and the timesheet and disbursement side of things to show that the numbers equate. I'm going to go through those in more detail, so I'll move off them now. In the data quality and settings section, we have 3 pages. Firstly, we have a section that I would imagine would grow quite considerably over the next 6 months to a year, which is, I guess, one of the areas I've got the most, I guess, interest in initially, which is trying to sort out that feedback loop of going, I'm entering data in Actionstep, and sometimes you don't get that easy view of what might be wrong in the data that's entered. What Cloudify and Form's data quality section has started doing and will continue to do is identify and shine a light on some of those things. So if I just look right now, this is quite minor, but you've got billable hours here that are higher than actual hours. Therefore, any calculation we do on actual hours could be incorrect, because maybe for this one, for example, there's 3.5 hours that was actually done and 3.8 that was billed as done. It doesn't really matter which is right. What matters is that the data reflects what's right. And so it may be that for the recent entries, you can go back to Andrew and say, hey, I'm seeing this is different. Does the billable hours need to be moved back to 3.5, or does the actual hours need to be increased? Now, that can be hard to do if it's already been invoiced, but by having this available on a daily basis and on a live basis, you will then be able to see, okay, I've got some from yesterday where they don't make sense and they can be fixed up before we invoice. Uh, Others I've got are where we've got time entries that aren't linked to a matter. Sometimes that can happen on restricted access, just as a matter of the data, of the way the data is structured. We know that there's a time entry, but we don't know what matter it relates to. Could be because it's a restricted matter, but it can also be because the time's been recorded, but it's not been recorded against a matter, and therefore you have a big risk of not actually billing that time. And for some clients, those entries can go back a long time and are then hard to do anything about because you may not remember what the work conducted was. And again, day by day, this is something that you could maybe go back, hey, Katrina, I'm noticing that there's this 4 hours of time that hasn't been linked to a matter from 2 days ago. What does that relate to? And it might be that it doesn't relate to work. It might be that it doesn't need to be billed, but it's a good It's a good checking mechanism. We have another check where we look at invoices being set to zero. This can happen operationally. Everything, like I said before in other videos, everything's sortable. So you can see that these are recent invoices that have been set up, and we may want to review that it's valid that they should have been set at zero. We also are doing some data entry on especially on individuals around the roles and where their roles haven't been set up properly in actions or haven't been defined in Actionstep, and therefore any sort of role-based selectors or tables or anything like that will show a lot of nulls as a result. So that's the data quality section, and that's going to that's going to increase. Two components that I've shown in the free reports that are across Cloudify and Form are mapping from matters to service or practice area, whatever you want to call it. And another one, which is the mapping of individuals to teams. And so there's two settings pages are the demonstration of, I guess, of what has been set up. So if I come here for the demo one, we don't have any staff that haven't been mapped, but this is where they would appear. So imagine you have a new starter, you haven't mapped them to a team. They would appear here with their staff ID and their name. You could then click on the team mapping sheet and go and enter them, and the next run they would be included in those teams metrics. So I'm working with companies to actually help them identify when those things happen. So I periodically look at them and identify them. But this is where you can self-serve and go, hey, I've got somebody who hasn't been mapped. Go in and map them. Again, also, I've got this table, which is say, this is are the mappings that you're using. So you have 33 individuals linked to the admin team, and here they are. You have these members of the private team. So again, like you can use this to be able to see who is mapped. You can just go to that sheet, but this will help confirm that the mapping has happened. And that's kind of useful as a sort of knowledge of what mapping has been applied. In a similar way, the mapping of matter types to service, we configure that for you. So there's no sheet that you can go in and make that manual change. That might be something that we look at doing, but here you can see these matters are considered non-billable. You can see then for the billable matters, you can see these fall into private client, these fall into conveyancing, these fall into family, other, and employment. And so you may look at that and go, no, I want this matter type to be with this group, or I want to split this group, this service out into two different services, and this is the configuration I want. So those two pages help you understand what Cloudify Inform is using, and allows you to then speak out if anything needs to change. That's all I've got for this video. It was a bit long, but you got to see the explanation section. You got to see the data quality page that is starting to add value in terms of how you're using Actionstep. And you got to see the settings page, which gives you some comfort around the mapping of teams and the mapping of service that is used in Cloudify Inform.